All right.
We are live. Episode 15.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, probably.
Let's do episode 15 then.
That's the one. If it's not, that's the one we're doing now.
It's the big one. It's the big one. The big 1-5. The one that everyone's been looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We had quite a good episode last week. I thought it was pretty interesting. It was topical.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. I think it was one of those where I spent so much time on all of these tools all week as well. I was just like burning to talk about it. So
Yeah.
it was nice to get it out.
There was definitely a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
Do you know what was interesting? Like, I went away from that, and because obviously we walked through like two different approaches to how we code. Like, they're loosely connected, but my approach was definitely still more manual. And like the big unlock this week has been firing up the MCP servers.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I just love coding this way. Like, it's so good. So basically what I've got is I will still sit with the idea, do a lot of ideation work with Claude Desktop.
Yeah.
So that part of the process hasn't changed at all. So if you want more on that, go listen to last week's episode.
Yeah.
But basically what I'll do is I'll step through essentially ideating, working out where the issues are with the idea, how we might think about building something, and then basically step Claude Desktop into being like a technical co-founder. And then the technical co-founder needs to go and like walk through all of these bigger like architectural questions, figure out how we might build this thing. And then it will build like a PRD, and like the next step along is an implementation plan. And like the implementation plan is where this changes from where I was last week to this week, which more closely resembles kind of what you do, but probably still a little bit manual. And what I'll do there is I'll go, Claude, just like before, we're going to step through all of the prompts sequentially, broken up into phases of development. And behind each prompt, you're going to have like a set of validation questions that what Cursor agent is going to look at to verify that it's written the right code, that it actually works and functions, and then steps to take if something doesn't work. And then I get Claude Desktop to just write all the stuff to my Obsidian in various folder structures that I've got. And then I can step into Cursor and just go review these docs that we've created. And then when you're ready, just kick off the implementation plan.
Yeah.
And I don't need to manually feed in like lots of different prompts. It's kind of cool because it will run through a step and then do the validation checks and go, yep, everything works. Let me fire up the server, make sure it works. And everything just like functions. And so I've like the most recent project I was trying to work on was this like new 3GS scene similar to what you see on our podcast video, but for panel discussions, which we might tease out a little bit, or maybe it'll just come out in future episodes. But yeah,
I mean, if you're on Noster, you already know about it.
already know
If you're
about
not on Noster, you should probably be on Noster.
but what was interesting is because I still think there's like an element of this which is just essentially vibe coding. Because I didn't really look at the code output, but I can look at the 3GS scene and it just works. It looks cool.
I didn't.
It's not
I don't
technically
necessarily
complex.
see the slow code approach as being that you have to look at the code.
It's
It
more
was
planned
just that
out.
you actually have intent to it.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the way that, like, I think there is like an absolute YOLO aspect of it, just by coding.
Completely. But there are checks and balances built in, which is what I think is quite good. And then there was a second step to it where I wanted to make a series of improvements. So I just basically took, how that looked, fed it back to Claude Desktop and was like, okay, we could probably refine this. And I laid out a few ideas for how I thought we could refine it. Claude had a few ideas for how we could refine it based on the initial vision. And then we turned that into a refinement plan that basically resembled the implementation plan. Again, sequential series of prompts for Cursor to go and implement in blocks rather than trying to one-shot the whole thing, and having the basically validation checks and balances, and yeah, it worked. But it's just such a cleaner environment now as well.
I feel like that was a big win for me. Like the other week when I hit this level, is like, oh shit, it's not necessarily that it's, you know what it is it's cleaner as in like I can work more peacefully mentally in this space. Like I had all the information, it just didn't look quite as nice and it wasn't structured quite as well, and so there would be a set of just impediments to me doing the work that disappeared. like with this different structure. Like that's where I got to with it. That felt like a big unlock. I was like, I can pick this up, I can do something, I can put it down.
Yeah.
And then like I even have it, so there's a couple of like specific files I have sort of in my system prompts for working with this to keep up to date and then go. So like one is to do like project-based change logs. So every time I'm working in a particular project, if I update a feature brief, if I update the code, then I will always like write out like the specific changes that have been implemented into that change log. And then I will have like a peak level change log and index of what's going on. So this will write out like what's in every file in there, so that instead of like reading everything off the front, I can just read the index file and then see where I need to go, which just cuts down some of the tool calling. But also there's like a consolidated like simplified change log. So that what I found is I kind of want to start the day with, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
And particularly when you're running multiple projects with multiple features in each project that are all getting built by somebody that isn't you, it's kind of, you do take yourself out of that loop a little bit. And so you need like structure and support to keep yourself grounded in like, well, what was I doing? Why was I doing it? Like, what's the next thing? What am I building towards? What does the roadmap look like? And so having like a lot of that stuff actually just get pulled straight out of the documents and the document stores by Claude is pretty useful. So I kind of have that run as like first thing in the morning. It's like, right, update the index, update the change logs, right, what's next?
Yeah, it's just so much easier to navigate as well. I think that was one of the things that I was realizing from working in Claude. It's the same in ChatGPT. You just lose stuff in conversation history. You know, there are good artifacts in there somewhere, but I don't know where they are, and I don't have good naming conventions either for the chats that I actually have in Claude or ChatGPT. I just let it default to whatever it has, and then I can't remember, because sometimes it's not great, or the conversation just pivots so wildly that it's no longer what the title of the chat was, and so all of this stuff is just really annoying. But you can manage the titles much easier if you've got a folder structure in something like Obsidian. I guess you could use Apple Notes as well.
It's like the difference of working with colleagues where you do everything in Slack versus you actually have a Google Drive with structure to it. You know, one of them you can go back to and you know where stuff is. Yeah. The other one, you said it at some point, but you can't remember where.
That's so true. That has been a pain point for using Slack. Like I've always I've never enjoyed using Slack. I don't quite get its appeal in that respect, but it really is a bugbear the moment you have to go and recall something. Just like, I don't know where the hell that thing was. You can search to a degree, but the naming convention has to be there. You need to know exactly what you're searching for. And sometimes I'll have just like a loose idea of what it was that I was looking for. But having everything essentially blocked out in a folder structure in Obsidian is great as well, because that helps me manage my like flicking between projects quite a bit as well. You know, like I can go, I don't quite fancy working on that thing right now, but you know, 3GS seems a bit of fun. Let me like dive into that. And I think that's really useful. The other aspect to it was obviously like getting that GitHub MCP sorted as well. So now there's, you know, the ability to check the code and in Claude Desktop, which I couldn't do before. Again, I was just copy pasting and giving instruction, and it was very manual, and I was the choke point. So it's just such a delightful way to work now.
That's nice. Yeah. That's nice. Have you tried Super Whisper yet as well for your voice control?
Haven't.
You should do that, because then it makes responding to. I find it makes the dialogue simpler to have like I get a set of questions back, and if I have to type everything out, it can feel like a bit of a schlep.
That's interesting.
Whereas, it feels like the sort of thing where I can start and stop and then get distracted and do something else and come back to it or look something up. Whereas if I just hit the transcription keys and I just go, all right, I'll read the question out, answer it on the fly, read it out, answer it on the fly. Yeah. Like it feels very natural in a way that I don't know why it just doesn't when I'm trying to do it.
That's interesting. I've tended to work more in Claude. And I guess like I found the voice with Claude to be like a little bit more, like there's more latency there. It gets a bit annoying.
That's why I use the
that's interesting.
The Super Whisper stuff. So I mean, all I'm doing is just recording audio and then turning it into voice. So I haven't tried the Claude app for it, but I'm sure it probably works as well.
Yeah.
The other thing I did is I did go and purchase a Mac Mini as well. So because I needed like one with like more more memory, because I wanted the ability to run a bunch of the models locally as well. It's like kind of thing, like if I'm going to have a reasonably decent system, I want something that can run at least like low-level classification tasks and various other things just on a continual basis on data that I care about, that I don't really want to be outside of my own system. So like whilst there's, if I'm doing open source coding, I don't necessarily mind using like whatever the best coding model is, because it's all open source code. I'm not really leaking any information there. But there is like certainly a bunch of like local based stuff that I want to be running as well. So I'm kind of looking forward to having these things up and running. I'm going to start leaning a lot more into Goose as an agent on the computer. And the idea is this is going to be like Goose's house. Like, it can do whatever it wants on this computer. I'm not really going to put anything else on it. I'm just going to have it there as like my work coding team. And it'll be like, right, you've got 10 Goose agents, off you go. Start building stuff. Here's how we manage all the information. Here's the pipelines. You start the day at like midnight and you come online and you review the index from everything we did the day before, and then you start setting up the task list, and then you start defining stuff. And like, I could probably have it generate a bunch of just random ideas.
Yeah, just like having human teams.
Well, it's like, well, I mean, you said it a minute ago, like you mentioned the like the idea of having the panel show, and it's like one of the things I've been investigating was it's kind of different ways that you can get information out of AIs, or use them to develop new knowledge, or to like really refine principles and ideas, is to do it in the same way that humans refine principles and ideas, which is that, if I want to take a subject and explore it, I would do that via conversation. So if you could imagine a dialogue, like for instance, two people sat in a van by the beach, just having a chat about AI, for instance, like we can do that like physically, like literally, like we are right now, and it takes like the real-time amount of time, it's about an hour to do it. But I can also do it in like 5 minutes using a couple of AI agents, and I can have them bounce backwards and forwards, and I can give them whatever personalities that I want, and I can set them specific tasks that I want to be explored, and then like review the output of that. And there's a few interesting findings that I've had from this, which is that I'll take like old podcast episodes of ours and then say, can you explore like this topic that we talked about? And like these things have legitimately come up with new knowledge that I like, look at and go, I can see how you've arrived at that. I can like read back through the conversation, and that's cool. That's correct. Like you've come up with like a new idea that we hadn't looked at.
Exactly.
And you've suggested new things that we should approach that I hadn't thought of yet. But I can see how they build on what I gave you, and that is cool.
Yeah, I remember like
Very powerful tool.
initially thinking, oh, this is just like potentially just going to regurgitate what we've been talking about, but using different language, because you kind of get that a lot from language models anyway. But when I went through that conversation, like I first read the summary markdown that you gave me, and then the full conversation that it spat out, I was just like, oh wow, that's like you're genuinely doing like quite a good job here. Like this is very interesting, and actually augments everything that we kind of talked about in useful ways that we hadn't considered. And I thought, oh, that's actually quite good. I wish I'd thought of that. There were a couple of instances where I was like, why didn't I think of that when we were talking about this?
And there's
That's
few.
a good sign.
Yes, exactly. Like, and then so what we now have is like different like settings and frameworks for them, so we can have conversations in different ways. So you've got like the two-person dialogue on a topic, like leading somewhere. There's like a facilitated dialogue, which is that you have a person plus like two people discussing a point, and then a facilitator who's going to keep them on track. So this can be useful where, so one finding from the dialogue was like, let's say you use Claude Sonnet only on both participants. What you can see is the bias of the system prompts that are used in the background actually starts to leak into this over time as it goes backwards and forwards on the topic. And so, for instance, there was an episode of ours about the future of AI, where we don't really, like, if anything, I'd say we're probably more blasé than a lot of people about like AI safety and like the impact of all this stuff. We're quite realistic and we're saying like, yes, this will destroy probably a lot of jobs, in the sense that big efficiency gains destroy jobs. Like there's a bunch of jobs that will need to be done, less people will do more stuff. it will probably create more businesses. So you want to be thinking about how to create a business to do the thing, not necessarily just keeping whatever job.
We're not like inertia specialists here. It's like no point in like continuing to do the thing for the sake of it if there's a better way of doing it. Like,
I don't think so. Yeah,
that's kind of the way.
Seems daft
we're
to me.
pragmatic, but we're also kind of just accepting of the fact that this is how like technology has always impacted work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, but then when you play it out with a couple of Claude 4 sonnets and you ask it to go on this, it just obsesses about the impact of AI safety. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I think you're clearly triggering something from their like system prompt and safety guidelines. Is that they have like there's certain things that you kind of get aware that like models will force down your throat that they've been programmed with, and you can tell because you can take exactly the same prompt, exactly the same setup, and you put grok in there, and it doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the source material that would lead it down that way. And so, like, is it in the weightings of the internet? Well, if that were the case, then you'd see it in grok as well. No. I'm sure if we did something about analyzing like Elon Musk's plane movements, it wouldn't come out of grok, and it might out of someone else. You know, like they're all going to have their particular biases, and it's worth being aware of that. Because like it may matter depending on what exactly it is that you're trying to do.
I mean, it's good to test different models in those conversations as well. Like instead of having two Sonnet 4s, it's just like you've got the O3 and Sonnet 4 and they're having an interaction, and then add the grok in the mix, and you know, it's like what unique elements does the different model bring into the conversation, just like a different human would.
Yes.
You know, we all have our own different biases, so we're going to bring those into the interactions we have. I think, you know, the real unlock from this, from like watching you play around with this as well, has just been like using the technology in like similar ways that we might interact with other human beings in work. Like that's like, I kind of natively find myself doing that. But I know for a lot of people, it's like the moment you put the machine in front of them, it changes how they think. You know, it's like all of a sudden I need to be in a different frame of mind. I need to like think about how to talk to this machine, and I need to basically have it all stepped out in my head first. And like, I don't know, I just feel like the beauty of it is like, you know, if we have an idea, we're just going to talk about it. It could go off in any different direction.
Yeah.
And I guess the downside is that we don't really do a good job of capturing it unless we're doing it on the podcast. But like all of a sudden you've got this ability to just have conversations, like not necessarily having an intent where you go. I mean, it's good to have the scaffolding and like some goal. And then, you just get this alpha, and it's just really valuable.
It turns out if you think about it like a human, you get good outputs.
Yeah.
And I found it was quite, like what you were saying there, is that people look at it and they go, oh, it's a machine, so I need to treat it like a machine. And we saw this with there's everybody on LinkedIn going like, oh, why are you saying like please and thank you to a model? And it's like, well, maybe because, you know, when you dictate tests to people, you should say please and thank you, because otherwise you're being a bit of a dick. So it's a machine, but like, you know, who cares if Sam Altman has to like spend a bit more money? Like, fine, gives a fuck. But
there is the meme as well, right? It's like he always said
exactly.
There's that.
You know, you want to be nice to the robots before they take over. But it's just like it turns out if you do it, like there's little things do actually make a difference as well. And like even I'm saying today, like, you know, you can say, I just do it perfectly. You actually get a better response. If you say, think about what you do, like what you just did before you tell me it, like you'll get a better response.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
It's not dissimilar to how you might talk to someone at work. It's like, oh, I really need you to be diligent with this. I need you to put in more effort on this one.
And I think the point about being nice is less about being nice, but more when you humanize the thing a little bit and think about what you're asking it and what sort of output you get, you start to get into a better frame of mind for how to get a better output of it, which is that your output that you get is directly proportional to the amount of input and time you spend putting into it. So like, it's great that you can just go, do this now, cunt. Like in Untitled saying, all right, that's striking YouTube, who knows. And it'll do it, but like you haven't really put any time and effort into it. So in the same way that you just wouldn't treat a person like that.
Exactly.
You would induct them into a role. You would tell them what they had to do. You would give them some guidance. You would tell them like what you're trying to achieve as a business and where you're going. And you would expect them to use all this information in the way they produce their outputs. It's the same here. Like you need to spend the time and the effort to give them good inputs so that you can get good outputs. Otherwise, well, we shouldn't be surprised when we get bad outputs.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you've got to spend the time and effort to do it. So things like saying please are really like a means of like thinking about this, like it is something that you care about and you want good output from.
Humanizing the whole
and
process.
you start to get good output.
But it's also like managing these like mental state changes as well. Like I feel like if this is the problem where you have a computer in front of you, it's like, oh, the way I think now is going to change because I've got a computer in front of me and not another human.
Or a co-worker or a collaborator sort of thing.
Yeah. But the beautiful part now is that, we talked about this a bunch, is the unlock here is that you can just talk to the computer in English. So like, why treat it differently? Why not just treat it like, a colleague or a co-worker or a friend, just...
Well, that's why I like to tell it to go fuck itself.
Every so often it needs to be told. And
you got to get angry.
Yeah.
You got to show it who's boss.
It knows the limits. If it starts bullshitting a little bit too much,
why the fuck are you doing this? You're stuck in a loop. Do something else. It goes, you know what? I'm right. I will.
I did this thing the other day because I got this feeling like Claude had just been nerfed for me. Like there was stuff I was doing where I was like, I've gotten such good inputs in the past doing this exact same. Such good outputs doing this stuff in the past, and it was just feeding me up absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just asked it. I was like, have you been nerfed?
Right.
And it was just like, oh, like, I mean, why do you say that? And we just ended up having this conversation. It was kind of weird, to be honest, for like the next 3 minutes. But it was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't realize my, my conversational output was any different. And then it just said, like, maybe we should like think about how we frame these prompts. And I didn't ask it to do that. It just was like, maybe I should help him come up with a better prompt because it's probably his fault for assuming a bunch of shit here.
Well, I mean, I don't know. This is wild speculation.
It is,
right?
Of course it is. Yeah.
Like back in the day, you'd get a lot of like voice-based menu systems and like telemarket, like telephone things that you ring up and you'd go, "Here, press 1 for blah, or do this," and it would analyze your voice.
Good impression.
But it turns out if you just keep telling them to go fuck themselves, they actually shortcut you to an admin.
Oh,
so it's a bit of a trick
Too late.
there. And so what it would do is it kind of, I think the idea here, I don't know if this was actually hard coded in or it just shortcuts it because you never answer. Yeah. But you would end up with a person that you could talk to on the other end. And I'd always assume that perhaps they go, you know what, for people that are really angry, we should probably just deal with them now. Yeah. And so we'll shortcut them to the front of the queue. So I used to do this quite a lot.
You're letting all the secrets out now. Everyone's going to do this.
And, it's the sort of thing that, like, if you were Anthropic and you were trying to ratchet people down and manage their amount of spend and various things, then the way you would do that is that you would start applying this to everybody, and then people that noticed, you would turn the limits back up on.
Interesting.
So, I don't know,
just there. Yeah.
Conspiracy, but that's what I would do if I was looking to save money on prompts. And
yeah. I mean, it does make sense, doesn't it? I did feel like a few days later, like, I don't know, it could have also just been me. This is, again, a mental state thing where I might have been, like, a little bit more impatient than normal and didn't quite prompt it the way I normally would, or, I'm quite aware of just, like, single-shot prompting now, because I just don't feel like it's that valuable for the most part. It depends what it is I'm doing, but this was content-based, so I was kind of like, I don't tend to, one-shot content. I feel like it needs more work.
It depends, even that is a bit of a reserved term, right? Because single-shotting an agentic system with all the information it needs to then do the job is fine. Like it's more like saying nothing and then expecting magic. It's kind of a bit. Yeah.
So I think that was interesting. By the way, just as an aside, should point out, I'm not sure if the mics will pick it up, but we've got a bit of ambient rain today at the beach. So last week we had like the whale sightings. This week we've got a lot light rain.
There could be whale sightings. I can't see much out the back window.
Visibility is restricted.
Waves.
This week's whale watch.
I enjoyed the whales. Yeah. As I say, it seemed out of season. But
I mean, I must admit, I don't spot the whales.
It was definitely distracting. Well, you're looking into the car park. You've got the wrong.
I did see it in the end once you'd alerted me to it, but I didn't. I've got the worst view. So. But anyway,
you say that, but you get to look this way.
At you, yeah. I said what I said. So yeah, that was quite the journey this week with Claude. Like, I feel like it had its ups and downs, but I'm quite enjoying this new coding environment and just being able to plan out ideas very quickly and get a prototype of something to see it. And this is one of the things that we were kind of talking about this earlier with learning and shortening feedback loops for stuff. I find that is really energizing for me when I'm learning. Like I remember picking up guitar as well when I was younger, and I don't know, I just felt a bit uncoordinated at times, and you don't get the quick feedback loop initially. It's slow to master, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's quite quick. Maybe it's just me. But if you have this progression that you can see, and it's tactile and tangible, it's like, oh yeah, great, I'm making progress. I want to do it more. You get the dopamine hit from it. I think that's really valuable, and that's the kind of thing I've been noticing more and more as I've kind of optimized the coding environment.
Makes sense, right? I mean, we've got kids, and when I see, not us, obviously, I've got kids. We don't have kids together.
I've met your kids.
You have met them. Yeah.
There we go.
Have you met them in person or just over video
I've met
stuff
them in
in
person.
general? Yeah, okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Oh. Now you've got me second guessing.
You have. Oh, you're invited to Bethan's book launch.
Oh, excellent.
Sorry, I was
go.
supposed to send that on to you. Sorry, I forgot.
It's official.
It's business on air.
Yeah. We'll just do all of our housekeeping on here.
So we've got some invoices. But, yeah, sorry. That's miles away.
Kids.
So learning with kids is what you really see is the moment they show just a little bit of, I don't know, just a little bit of ability in something, it really is just worth leaning in, because they're so much more likely to stick with it and to make those next 3 steps and get over that initial issue of not being good at stuff. We've been looking at that with various different instruments that they may or may not be interested in, different hobbies that they may or may not be interested in, or recently I was doing mini painting stuff with Mikey, and I was saying here's a new technique you could try and see how that goes, and it really worked for him. And I was dry brushing stuff, and now he's dry brushing everything, and he's all over. He's Dad, I've done this, and it's great because now he's got 2 techniques he can work on, and he's started to build it up a little bit, and it's okay, that's nice. But you can see that momentum just builds capability, and the more they get used to it, and then those skills reinforce other skills. And,
I find when you keep hitting the same blocker, that's it can be quite soul destroying, and that tends to be where you give up.
Yeah.
So whereas now I feel there's a way to figure this out, and then that ties, at least for me personally, it ties into the kind of problem solving that I quite enjoy, and then I'm able to, even if it's not a perfect workaround, I'm able to figure out a workaround, and then that enables the momentum to keep going, and
So I found with this has been kind of a surprising revelation to me, is that it's made me dislike no-code tools more. In the sense that no-code tools do the code for you, but then because you're that level of abstract away, you don't see any of the code and you don't see what's happening underneath it. And so whilst you can talk to AIs to help you through configuring stuff in a visual environment, it can't really do it in the same way, and it doesn't understand either what's going on.
Interesting. Yeah.
Whereas if you let the thing write the whole code base from the bottom up, it knows exactly what is going on, and it can check anything that it needs to, and it can adjust anything that it needs to. That I find that say I'll work, because we had Flowwise up on the board earlier, because it's a nice visual for showing how things work. And I want to like it a lot more, and I'm there's still so much stuff that it would be useful to just use this sort of visual environment to play with. But whenever I hit an edge case where something doesn't quite work, or something fails, or there's an error, or a tool call doesn't quite work, it all just fucks up, and then you almost can't diagnose it as quickly as just writing the whole thing from scratch and having it in this almost computer native world. Right, so it's for the coding these days, I've got my human native world, which is the Obsidian version of all the docs that explain every feature, how it was designed, how it was built, and what we did. And then we've got the code version, which is the machine's version of okay, well, this is what is actually happening right now.
Yeah.
There's a little leak coming out on the thing.
On your door.
Yeah, it's where the water wicks over the side via the roof rack. So I probably need to move that, but it doesn't really harm anything. So
it's fine.
We'll just ignore it.
Just observations.
It just drips on the kids when we're camping, so who cares? So I'm over there, I'm in a warm, comfy bed. I don't know what's going on with that wet child.
Just doing some like van diagnostics while we're here
Yeah,
on the pod.
I'll fix it.
But that's an interesting observation. Like I was having this thought recently that I've just been so much less interested in trying out new software. And because in the past, I quite get excited when I see something new and interesting, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'd be keen to try that, at least walk through it for a bit and see how it works. And I've just been not interested at all. Like I see stuff being released like all the time. I'm just thinking, no, I don't want to do that. Or it'll give me an idea for something else to build. Like there'll be some element of it that I'll think is valuable, but not the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, use stuff that we build. Like,
Well,
it's,
yeah,
it's stuff
obviously.
that other people have built. That's the problem.
Terrible salesperson. But yeah, there has been this just kind of. I think this is just my own curiosity that kicks in, where I'm just like, oh, that could do 70% of what I need it to do, but maybe I could just like.
But it's like, can I make it do the last
part? Yeah,
the last 30, which is the hard bit, and that's the real unlock of having this ability to code directly with the LLMs. Is like, yes, you can do that, but you probably can't affect the base version very much.
Yeah,
and like it was interesting with something like Flowwise, where it is all open source, like ostensibly should be possible.
Yeah,
but just because you're operating inside that framework, you're kind of constrained, and you just don't need to be. Yeah. It's like, look, at the end of the day, like, whilst it's nice to have a visual for building this stuff, I don't build it anyway. So, it's still better to go through that design approach to it. So I may as well just talk to the computer and have it build it.
I think the bigger problem there is that you just can't diagnose a problem if it arises, and you're kind of stuck. Like, what's the point? You've just invested a bunch of time.
Yep.
Could you have just built it?
Yeah, and it turns out I could usually.
Yeah, and it's quick.
I already know what I want anyway. I may as well just build it. And if I can draw it, I can describe it. I can build it. So,
I mean, I still think there's like some value in like quick prototyping and things like that. But I don't know. Like, do you think these just go away, definitely. Like no code, or do you think like there's
because other people like them, they don't. Yeah. Like, I think they're good for. I think certainly for like specific instances or like the thing that I like them more for is probably like all the pre-built connectors and things like that.
Visual environments,
Oh, sorry. Because you can just like, pull that onto the page, and then now I connect it to this data source, or I can do these things. And like that's useful. Like there's whole integration platforms for companies that really do just that.
Yeah. Being able to
provide that integration for you. But I think a lot of people are going to just build a lot of that as MCP frameworks these days, at which point you think, well, I can just run like 10 more tool calls and this is all done for me. And, that might cost me 50 cents, but I don't care.
Yeah.
It's quicker and it's just infinitely flexible.
Yeah. I think it's just useful to play with all of this stuff. I mean, like, we've kind of gone back and forth on some of these tools in the past in terms of like usefulness, but we wouldn't have figured it out unless we'd actually spent the time playing. And I think the observation that I've pulled from talking to a bunch of different people and, obviously we're having conversations this morning, most people are just still very much at the I've played with ChatGPT a couple of times stage.
Yeah.
There is this whole world that they can go and explore that they haven't yet. And I do wonder, like, if there's like a kind of like a minimum viable like environment to get people on to play with AI to get the most out of it, or if that's just ChatGPT. I don't know.
Well, I think that's the concept with speedrun, right?
Yeah.
It's a different thing.
That's it.
But
we're teasing it here.
Yeah, it'll always be teasing. ABT. I think for me a big unlock is actually building something.
Yeah.
Like the development space was the bit that I was like, oh shit, like this is a very real thing. It's very impactful.
Yeah.
It's like once you realize you can just build stuff, that's just a huge unlock. I don't know if that's for everybody, because I don't know everybody's that interested in these sort of things. But I think everybody that does it will have that sort of response, particularly if they weren't a coder beforehand. You would just be like, oh shit, like I would have had to spend thousands of dollars on this. Yeah. And it's there. That's weird.
Yeah. I do wonder though if there's this, like we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but in the past you've got people that have like domain expertise but don't necessarily know how to build something So they would go talk to the engineer. The engineer doesn't have domain expertise, but they know how to build the thing, but probably will only build it, up to a point, because there's going to be aspects of it that they either don't know how to do or can't do, or this was always like the friction.
They just think it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like they just don't see it in the same way. They go, oh, well, that's not important, so I just got rid of it. And you're like, but I wrote it down and told you it was important. And they're like, yeah, but I just didn't think it was important, so I just got rid of it. And you're like, all right, it's a never-ending, like, just battle between developers and engineers.
There's a lost in translation element to it as well. And whereas now, I think you just go and you can just take your domain expertise and just start building and seeing where you get to.
Yeah.
If there's a pain point somewhere along the line, you can find a solution to it if you're just prepared to play. And I think the other big problem here is just finding the time to do it. Everyone's got their kind of business as usual and the day job, and then they've got the kids and they've got the house, and there's a lot to do. And so finding the time to play, as it were, can be challenging. But I think it's really valuable to find the headspace to just go and do it and experiment.
Yeah, like it's been the best thing. And it's been enjoyable as well, I've found, in the last sort of year or so of just really exploring the space and figuring out how it all works. And from doing, right? You just can't learn anything from books. That sounds bad.
Yeah.
You can learn ideas, you can challenge your mind and your principles maybe, but like you're not going to learn how to practically do anything. You've got to do stuff.
You've got to do it. Yeah.
You've got to test it out and see how it works. So
I do, I do wonder, just tying in a couple of concepts here. We've talked in the past, I was playing around with building out synthetic audiences. And like one of the challenges that I've had with synthetic audiences is just, do you know if this is in any way reflective of what a real life environment might be? So, and I'm sure people with a lot more knowledge and experience working with synthetic audiences might have takes on this, but that's been the question in my mind about the kind of, do I persevere with this or do I just pivot away from it? And then more recently, looking at the conversational approach to some of this stuff, because we're building out synthetic audiences within the framework of building content. So how do we improve the content that we can write for different form factors, like is it social media, is it long form, is it any number of different things. And there's a bunch of best practice that exists in all of those verticals. So capturing that and then running through drafts into synthetic audiences. And you get to a point where like, I don't know if this is like mirroring how this would perform in the real world all that accurately. I just don't know. There's a disconnect. And then like more recently seeing the conversational dialogue-based approaches, I'm just like, I wonder if there's like a way to just improve using dialogue in the same way that we might just run things past, like for instance, like Beth Ann's written a book. Like, did she give you an advanced copy to read the book and comment on, or anything like that, or did she just not?
It's gone out to a bunch of. I've been tasked with proofreading like specific parts of the book, but in some ways, like when you're married to somebody, you can't actually provide them any feedback or advice. So, like it goes both ways.
It's advanced.
Right? Like
it's advanced feedback in the sense that you guys are talking about this stuff all the time. So there's probably some of the stuff that gets baked
there's
in.
Tons of ideas of like mine and stuff we've talked about in there, I think. But
just plugging Beth Ann's book again.
Yeah,
one
exactly.
more time.
Oh,
Is that 3 times?
You invited to the book launch, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, but
in the same way you might do that, you might put out content for feedback from other people that you know.
Yeah.
And then I guess the difference there is you're having to collate that feedback and manually process it yourself. And whereas the like AI conversational like dialogue-based approach is quite interesting in this context. I'd be really curious to see how it goes. And then like there's any number of like business use cases you could throw this stuff at. Marketing plans and brand reviews and ad copy. There's I'm obviously playing in a more marketing focused space there, but finance, fraud prevent, just a bunch of things you could do with this.
I mean, there's a reason that we have meetings.
Exactly.
They are expensive. And like I know everyone likes to talk about how like they're terrible and we shouldn't use them, but it's because we get results out of them. Like partly there's an element of like sharing risk or something like that, or shared decision making, but often like well-run meetings are there to do certain things, and they are usually there to advance knowledge or to gain agreement or to find like a common perspective across something. And so I think there'll be space for replicating elements of that into an AI world, and they'll just run quicker. And then, as we said, like, you know, we'll let the robots complain about it in 20 years' time that they're having too many meetings.
Yeah. I mean, it does make you wonder why more organizations don't try and like capture all of that via recording and transcription, because presumably there's just a heap of organizational knowledge that just lives in those meeting spaces.
I would guess so. I imagine there's a lot of bullshit. I imagine a lot more people are
That's probably that too.
transcribing stuff, but then it's, I don't know. It probably depends. Like I can imagine a lot of like big businesses would go like, oh yeah, let's do that, and we've got the money, and we'll stand up a big project to do it, and then a bunch of people that don't really understand any of the like the ontology of the business and like what it's trying to achieve and like what the question should be will create some sort of godforsaken system that doesn't really do anything useful. And then there'll be a lot like smaller people where you'd have a lot more like knowledge in smaller businesses. They would be able to write that sort of system, but they just don't, because they can't afford to stand up the godforsaken massive project to do it. Like and like, you know, like we've a bit of experience in this space. There's ways you would do this, but it is using like a whole bunch of quite advanced techniques that like I sometimes forget is just not available to everybody.
It's not off the shelf.
You go, oh, just do it like this and this and this, and then you're like, all right, well, you know, I haven't said anything that's useful to you because this is all just common knowledge. And I'm like, what? That's not common knowledge. Like, where are you from?
I kind of do wonder though if you actually hit record on meetings whether it eliminates a lot of the bullshit, because people know, like on some level, if they're just full of shit and want to say something for the sake of it. Yeah. And if you're being recorded, there's almost like a little bit of like implied pressure to not do it potentially, unless you just really love the sound of your own voice.
Like, you can tell, like, if there's no agenda, then this is probably just a bullshit meeting that you don't need to be at. But there's, like, I like a meeting, but I like them to be more like collaborative and with a purpose for what we're trying to achieve out the back of it. But you should recognize that it costs like a lot of money for everybody to be there. It also costs a lot of money for a bunch of people to be sat around on their own at their desk and not progressing anything as well. Exactly. So there's a line between the two things. It's not that one is good and bad. It's what you need is people doing the right jobs at the right time, the right information, and with the right agency to make decisions and so on.
What's interesting though is sometimes I think the motivation for thinking about recording and transcription is like, oh, can I just like extract the tasks and, you know, the bits of work that we've talked about in the meeting in order to like, you know, capture that somewhere and then fire off those tasks to relevant people in the organization to go and execute on, instead of being like, do you know what, there's probably a whole heap of useful information about how things ought to be done in this organization that is subject to potential loss just because you like every business has people movement in and out of the business, bringing their own skills and experiences, leaving with their own skills and experiences, and like none of that is codified anywhere in the business. The business doesn't just have this like essentially like dynamic living brain that is just absorbing all of this stuff and figuring out best practice. And it's like that is like a whole layer
Pray
of
for
depth.
the best sometimes. Quite hideous brains.
Maybe it is. Yeah.
The Rio Tinto brains.
There's a whole layer of depth that's just being lost. That, you know, but instead it's just like, oh, can we just like push tasks a little bit more efficiently?
Well, and you know, like
that's a part of it.
Tasks is a thing. Like, it's the sort of thing we can obsess about because productivity and moving stuff forward and getting stuff done, and it feels like you're kicking goals and the rest of it. But at the same time, like, you know, it's not dealing with the why. Yeah. Like, you know, one question that like, I don't see anybody releasing, I don't know, maybe we should. You can release like a tool that takes your meeting discussion and then talks about the relevant philosophy and principles that are being applied to decision making inside this meeting, and then pulls people up for acting in ways that are out of step with your organizational philosophy and principles, and saying like, look, it's not about the decisions you're making, it's about how you're doing it. You're making decisions in the wrong way. You're focused too much on tasks. You're not, you know, like if we go back to our values, right? You're worrying too much about fucking spiders. Yeah. And we're not here to fuck spiders. That's value number two. Don't do this.
Just wait a moment. I'm just gonna go and like buy the domain. Like my meeting is my meeting bullshit.com.
That's a good tool.
That'd
yes,
be handy, yeah.
possibly. Like 50-50.
Yeah.
50-50, either is or isn't.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like it's just how probability works.
Yeah. I think there's sometimes just some first principles thinking that needs to go into some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Everything, I think, and that's the thing, like a lot of it is just, we're just pushing productivity tools, and I don't know. I find my experience with AI lately has really been more at a meta level. How can I do things? How can I achieve things? How can I learn things? How can I step through big projects? How can I basically create leverage for myself? You know?
If you think about it of this, I'm just talking up now because the rain's getting a lot harder.
It's no longer ambient noise.
Yeah, so if you go from vibe coding to slow coding, what you've kind of done is you've said all right, well, with vibe coding, I realize that my ability to do something quickly is there. I can execute quick, so it's no longer about task tracking and doing it. Suddenly it becomes about well, what is the task and how well described is it? Yeah. And then the next obvious level beyond that is, well, why is the task? Yeah. Because if it's not so much about your ability to execute, if execution is always quick, the thing that's going to waste time is doing the wrong thing. Yeah. And so it then comes back to the human qualia aspect of well, why am I working on this, and why is this the thing that needs to happen now to move things forwards? Yep. So it would make a lot of sense to be spending your time not worrying about what the decisions are and are they executed. Yeah. But why are the decisions, and what am I doing here? And should we be doing this at all, or should we just go and do something else? Should we be down the beach in a van?
I mean, at that level, it's just a machine with a bunch of steps, and you just want to make sure that every step is being ticked off at that point. Because there's probably a bunch of people tasked with making sure that each of those steps is being ticked off.
And this is what AIs are going to be very good at, is going to be expanding on and producing very detailed scripts for work to be done, and for taking very detailed scripts for work to be done and doing the work. Yeah. But it's not seemingly that great right now at doing the why is the work. Yep. So I think there's a real place to focus on that.
Yeah. So why are we doing this thing? Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Again, maybe conversational AI is handy in that respect to help flesh out those questions. Yeah. Do you want to chat about your travels this week?
No, I mean, it probably will come out in the sense I keep looking at the time thinking, all right, we're going to move this on soon.
Yeah. It's a shorter episode this week.
Well, it'd be interesting to see if people like a short episode.
That's true.
So I sometimes wonder. Yeah. I mean, it's Bitcoin Bush Bash week. Who doesn't love a Bitcoin Bush Bash? If you ever get the opportunity, these are the best things in the world if you're into the space. But I'll look at it. If anyone's interested, look it up. Yeah. It's great.
Excellent.
I'm a fan. Best cult. Great cult. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Of all the cults, best one.
The Good Stuff is another good cult.
It is a good cult, I think.
9 out of 10, 8 out of 10? What do we think?
10 out of 10.
Oh, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
There we go. Beautiful. What do you reckon? Do we call it there? It's a quick one this week.
That's the good stuff.